Where is Final Fantasy XVI? It's the question that has been on every Final Fantasy fan's mind, including my own. I am tired of wearing the clown suit, and while I have been enjoying Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, I still yearn for the next mainline entry in the franchise as well. And today, Naoki Yoshida has blessed us with an update here in 2021, as promised. Sort of. The update is kind of that the next major update unfortunately will not happen until 2022, with Naoki Yoshida delivering this statement to us last night. It's saying, quote, "Greetings everyone. When last we spoke, I promised I would have more information on Final Fantasy XVI sometime later in 2021. However, I regret to inform you that I'll be unable to keep that promise, as complications stemming from ongoing COVID-19 pandemic have delayed the game's development by almost half a year. That is pretty crazy. It means that the game has been pushed back by almost 6 months. And who knows when it was originally supposed to launch. It means that we would have gotten a lot more information this year had the pandemic not screwed everything up." He then continues by saying, "As the latest addition to the Final Fantasy series being developed for the PlayStation 5, Final Fantasy XVI has amassed a sizable team, composed of talented creators from around the world. However, in an effort to offset the effects of COVID-19, we've had to decentralize that workforce by permitting staff to tackle their assignments from home. This has unfortunately hampered communications from the Tokyo office, which in turn has led to delays in, or in extreme cases, cancellations of asset deliveries from our outsourced partners." Now, for those of you who don't know, it's exceedingly rare for a AAA studio to actually make all of their assets in-house nowadays. Typically, there are these companies that are purely dedicated to creating assets for these games, and they contribute a number of assets to the game while the main team is also continuing to work on their own assets, and thus speeding up production of the game. This tells me if Square Enix's production partners are seeing delays in assets, and even cancellations, that this is not just affecting Final Fantasy XVI, this is probably affecting Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 and a bunch of other projects. Projects that we probably don't even know about. I remember back at E3 and everyone was wondering, why is E3 so kind of lame this year? There wasn't any big game announcements, there wasn't anything major that happened, and the biggest reason that is probably this right here. It's just affected numerous projects in such a negative way. And while things are semi-normal now, it's something that we'll probably continue to see the effects of all the way through 2022. He continues by saying, quote, "That said, we have spent much of 2021 addressing this issue and hope to see its impact to a minimum by the new year, allowing us to better focus on the task at hand, increasing graphic resource quality, refining combat mechanics, fleshing out individual battles, putting the finishing touches on cutscenes, and conducting overall graphical optimization. Our primary goal now is to be as hands-on with the game as possible in order to see it fully polished." I thought the game was beautiful when they first showed it off. Some people had concerns about the graphics and they want to see the game looking as beautiful as possible. I think the next time we see it, the game is going to look absolutely stunning. It's going to be something that we can truly call next gen, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think that the Final Fantasy XIV team, Creative Business Unit 3, has been really good at creating beautiful worlds. Even in 14, when they're running on a limited engine that is basically running on technology that was built to run on a PlayStation 3, the game still has really strong, really beautiful art. And being able to see that team create unconstrained by the limitations of a PS3, and being able to make something next-gen and truly spectacular is going to be a sight to behold. Now, the next big question is answered. When are we actually going to see Final Fantasy XVI? Naoki Yoshida had this to say. So that leaves us with the question, when can we expect the next round of information? Well, I am happy to announce the current plan is to conduct our next big reveal in spring of 2022, as we seek to build excitement leading up to the game's eventual release. Well, I am happy to announce the current plan is to conduct our next big reveal in spring of 2022, as we seek to build excitement leading up to the game's eventual release. I deeply apologize to all those who have been looking forward to learning more about Final Fantasy XVI, and thank you for your continued patience while we focus our combined efforts on development. Final Fantasy XVI producer, Naoki Yoshida. Now, it's important to remember that Yoshida has said that the next time time he reveals Final Fantasy XVI, he wants it to be playable soon thereafter. A game that you can get hyped for immediately after its reveal, with launch being close by. If that's the case, I can only imagine Final Fantasy XVI potentially being a maybe fall 2022 game, Q4 of 2022 at the latest, possibly 2023 now with this delay. In either case, the game is far more in development than people think. I've seen people making jokes that, oh, we'll see this game in 5 or 6 years. If this was just vanilla Square Enix, I would probably agree with you. But this is Creative Business Unit 3, who has barely had any delays the entire time they've been operating. If I'm not mistaken, in the entire course of Final Fantasy XIV's lifetime, there's only been maybe 2 major delays. And indeed, it took something major like this pandemic to have them not deliver the game on time. Creative Business Unit 3 has been on fire lately, with Endwalker having the highest Metascore voted by users of the year, and Endwalker and Shadowbringers having the highest aggregated score of any Final Fantasy title in about 20 years. That is insane. This is one of the few big teams that I have damn near blind trust for. They have proven time and time again that they know what the Final Fantasy brand is, that they know how to build a quality product, and that they care about their consumers and about what they're releasing in a way that feels genuine and human. I've seen this man cry over a 2-week delay, so I know this had to deeply hurt him, and that if there was any way possible for him to make this happen, I know that he would. And if Endwalker being pushed back by 2 weeks made him feel that way, I'm sure he feels extremely disappointed about what's happening with Final Fantasy XVI. Again, it's really worth mentioning that this probably isn't just affecting Final Fantasy XVI, this is also probably delayed Final Fantasy VII Remake 2. As I imagine FF16's outsourced partners have been affected like this, Remake 2's probably have been as well. Not to mention other games that we probably don't even know about. But that being said, considering the quality of their last few projects, I just don't have much worry about this one. I feel like the team knows what they're doing and they're making the right decisions. And also, if we're going to be seeing this in spring of 2022, that implies that within the window of March to about May we'll be seeing this game. There aren't too many big major gaming events during that time that immediately spring to mind. It's entirely possible that they could do something proprietary, in the same way that Naoki Yoshida has done live letters for 14. Perhaps he could adopt a single-player approach to that in the same way that Hajime Tabata did with the Active Time Reports, a series of streams in which Tabata was able to get on camera and deliver updates about the game. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Naoki Yoshida did the same thing for 16. In either case, he says that he wants this game to be playable soon, right after the game is re-revealed. So I imagine that we are going to get an insane media blitz where all sorts of stuff is coming out about the game all at once. He wants us to go directly from the hype to playing the game. While there have been major difficulties developing games during this time, it was hard to get voice actors in, it was hard to do motion capture, it was difficult to do all of these things. Not to mention having to make teams adjust from working in an office to making them work remote. And even now, as things return to semi-normal, there are still numerous challenges. And I have all the trust in the world, all the faith in the world that Naoki Yoshida can continue to pull this off and can pull out one of the best single-player Final Fantasy games that we've ever seen. I just recently finished Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, and I can safely say that Final Fantasy XIV as a whole is probably the best Final Fantasy game I've ever played, and maybe one of the best video games of all time. Creative Business Unit 3 has continued to build trust in their consumer by being transparent with messages like these that don't beat around the bush and tell us exactly what's going on. They're clear and transparent in a way that so many big AAA studios just aren't. It feels like you can trust them to deliver a quality product, but it also feels like you can just trust them to be honest about the most basic of things. The culture of Creative Business Unit 3 and the way this team works is incredible, and it's led by a man who genuinely cares about the fans. And genuinely, it is something that I love to see from Square. But with all of that said, Ultima, I want to hear from you. When do you think that Final Fantasy XVI will be launching? I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say fall 2022, sometime around there. Subscribe, click the bell icon, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to patron Skullbacon and the rest of the Ultima community.